Welcome everybody, this is Marcel Irnie with IrnieracingNews reporting January 5th, 2024. This is a big piece of legal news regarding to the flare mandate. So since we're on CensorTube, I'm going to put this on IrnieracingNews because we already had a close call on the big Irnie Racing channel. But we're going to call vaccines flares, okay? So every time I say there's a flare mandate, there's a the flare waned its efficiency, efficacy, etc. So just keep that in mind. So let's get into what's going on legal here. And this really makes a big difference to the healthcare workers who are still fired in BC. The healthcare workers still can't go back to work unless they had the 3 flares. Even though this is years later and it's already been proven that the flares don't stop transmission, the flares don't stop what the hell am I talking about? Transmission or actually just prevention. Okay, in a recent decision of arbitrator Nicholas Glass in the Purolator Canada case, guys, yes, the Purolator, the shipping company, provides a major upset to the flare mandate regime because Susan Anton, BC's ongoing flare mandates stand on a shaky legal foundation. In a December 14th decision under the Canada Labour Code, Glass awarded compensation to the Purolator employees who were kept too long from their positions due to flare status, a first in Canada as far as I can tell. Further, he demolishes the foundation for BC's current flare mandates for healthcare workers by finding that as of March 2022, flares protected from neither infection nor transmission. They had waned steadily in effectiveness. Well, of course they have. Well, I tried telling that to those people running around on the extreme left. They don't give a shit about anything. In a province where courts and arbitrators have been quick to back the decisions of health officials such as Bonnie Henry, no matter how minimal the evidence, the case will send shockwaves through the system. If his findings is recognized by others, the entire foundation of BC's ongoing flare mandates has crumbled. Glass found that while there was justification for the original mandates based on the advice from health authorities and other experts at that time, Purolator had a continuing obligation to pay attention to health advice as it changed over time. And change it did. What a fantastic point. Oh, we're going to go by the advice of Dr. Bonnie Henry and Adrian Dix, which we all know is based on propaganda. It's based on control. Nothing else. Just the control. But as proof comes out, they had to the advice has to change. And so does Purolator and all these companies such as Health BC, which they have not, because it's still run by Bonnie and Adrian Dix, these fuckheads. He finds that after March 2022, the authorities were no longer asserting, quote, that a 2-dose flare after 25 weeks was of any value in protecting against infection. He concludes that the unpaid leaves of absence ceased to be reasonable as of June 30th, 2022. The employer did not, in fact, end them until nearly a year later on May 1st, 2023. So people were out of work an extra year, and they should have never been out of work in the first place. Their lives were torn apart, upset, you work for a company for 20, 30 years and you're just thrown to the side like a piece of dirt. I mean, worse than dirt. Sometimes people like to collect dirt. It's valuable sometimes. But no, not you guys, because you didn't get the flares. It's been my view for some time that mandate issues need to be properly litigated, and this case shows the startling results which can develop when a well-informed arbitrator or judge has good evidence to work from. The Union for Purolator called an expert immunologist who testified that the C-19 flares in use provided no reliable protection from infection 60 days after the second flare. Glass found that the evidence she presented was overwhelming and persuasive, and he preferred it over the evidence of the employer's expert of Purolator. His most startling and important observation were in relation to the position of the BC government authorities, in particular the provincial health officer, Dr. Dick Bonnie Henry. Henry's series of public health orders relating to flare mandates for healthcare workers continue to this day, which is why the unflared healthcare workers remain fired. Her orders are always closely supported by Health Minister Adrian Dick Dix. In her order of September 12, 2022, Henry said that, quote, an unflared person is more likely to become infected than a flared person and is more likely to transmit the, COV-2 than a flared person, end quote. This language continues in their current order. They're still pushing this. We all know these guys are working for the WEF globalists, the bankers, the control freaks of the world, the Klaus Schwabs, the evil people in the video games, right? The Bowsers. Glass does not agree. Quote, I must conclude that this statement is an outlier. It is wholly inconsistent with the preponderance of material I have been presented with. Wholly inconsistent. BC government lawyers will be reading this conclusion very carefully. Now, arbitrations are not binding in the way court decisions can be, but they are influential. To me, the logic in this decision is extremely persuasive, and I expect it will have significant ramifications, particularly for the unflared healthcare workers in BC who were fired over 2 years ago. Now, they were the heroes of COVID, for whom we banged on pots and pans every night in recognition of their hard work and sacrifice. They labored mightily in BC hospitals, saved lives, and worked long and tough hours. Their thanks to be fired. Some have moved to private health facilities or retired or left BC altogether, but many remain at home with their shattered lives and no income. Like all of those who were fired due to the mandates, including the Purolator employees, no number can be put on their anguish. They lost their positions, their livelihoods, and their standing in their profession and the community. Their families have suffered. Most have given their entire careers to the profession and were fired for asserting a fundamental human right. The government has steadfastly refused to hire them back despite the acute staff shortages in BC. Nobody even wants to go to the hospital anymore. I avoid it at all costs. You'd only go there if you absolutely need something from them that you can't get yourself or from a naturopath doctor. When, you should be taking your mushroom mix and your golden seal. All these things are wonderful. When Minister Dick Dix is asked about the mandates, he insists that they will continue. But why? Given that the rest of the country abandoned their mandates long ago, is there an actual health reason for keeping them? I'm going to insert here. I bet they're completely scared to shit going against their boss, their Führer, whoever that is. Essentially, they're probably thinking that they're dead if they back out. They're being blackmailed. Who knows? They're financially paid, blackmailed, controlled, coerced, and they should be held for trial and taken up the wood plank. The Purolator decision is clear. The unflared workers pose no different a threat to the public than the flared workers. Dun dun dun. In their fall update, neither Minister Dick Dix nor Dick Henry provided an additional health rationale for the mandates. In fact, their explanation only muddied the waters. While encouraging all British Columbians to get their fall flare, they did not require that healthcare workers go beyond the minimum first 2 doses from 2021 and acknowledged that all flares have waned in effectiveness, confirming the findings of Glass. The inevitable conclusion is that the determination to continue mandates is entirely a political calculation, likely because the province wants to be able to control staff in their flare requirements. If the order is indeed political, not health, it is not in the purview of the PHO. If a good health argument has been made, then so be it, but it has not, and any pretense of an argument has now been demolished by Glass. Most of the fired health workers, union, non-union, and physicians are currently in litigation. Needless to say, if the orders are found to be invalid, the cases will be very expensive for the provincial government. Let me interject. that is very expensive for the taxpayer citizens. We're all paying for these assholes to do this to us. How frustrating. We have moved from socialist to extreme communism, where they take 60, 70, 80% of our money that we worked and created. They take almost all of your money, not just with income tax, but with tax on the fuel, tax on the fuel, tax on your food, tax on, now everybody's affected by the tax on the transportation. The carbon tax is on everything. And then they'll tax you the 14% in BC or 12%, your provincial tax, your sales tax, federal tax. It just never ends. You walk away with pennies on your dollar. They take it all and then they spend it. Now they're going to have to spend it on this litigation, which they run through trial. Tamara Leach, she's in 34 days of trial for mischief, a charge of mischief, which she's already served more time than the mischief charge from the Freedom Convoy, if you remember. 34 days of trial. 34 days is extended, which they're just trying to run her lawyer fees up huge. And we're paying for the other side of this. We're all paying for it, guys. We're paying for Ukraine to die. All those men are dead. And Canada, the Trudeau, is taking our money and funneled that to have those people die. It is continuing. People are dying in the Gaza Strip. Some money from Canada. Money from the US, of course. It's called the military-industrial complex. If you think it's going to end just like that, it's not. It's been going on since World War II. Once they realized how much money they can suck out of the economies and put into their own pockets with the military-industrial complex, there is no peace. War is peace. It's perpetual war. Back to the article. Alone in Canada, the unflared BC healthcare workers, heroes of the pandemic, remain out in the cold. But they may yet get the relief. The Purolator decision can only help. Susan Anton Casey was Attorney General of BC from 2013 to 2017. This is Irnieracing News, guys. Hopefully you get to hear this and CensorTube doesn't attack us down. Thank you. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share.